What's going on, guys? Welcome back to #AskGSM here today for December 9th, 2020, episode 367. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. If you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually, again, keyword usually, I forgot the last 2 weeks, so I apologize, but usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. So again, if you want to send in a question through Facebook and the post is not up on Tuesdays, you can always drop a question on the wall itself. But last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Before we get started, quick exciting announcement here. The announcement's probably already been made on the Twitter machine before this video goes up, but I'll be talking to Goldberg on Friday for Bleacher Report. Well, technically I already talked to him this morning, but the interview is going to be up in audio form here in the channel on Friday morning and in article form on Bleacher Report that same day at the exact same time. So 8 a.m. Eastern Time, Friday morning, December 11th. Check it out, my exclusive interview with Goldberg. I had a chance to talk to Sasha Banks, Seth Rollins, Triple H, Kevin Owens, and so many more legends and notable names this year. Very fitting that Goldberg is going to be one of the final of 2020. You say who's next? Goldberg is next. And I've talked about this before, but I actually had a chance to talk to Goldberg 5 years ago for a movie that he was doing called Checkpoint. And I've spoken openly about how it was one of the most intimidating experiences ever. Long story short, it's on my Facebook page from last year, but when I was talking to Goldberg right before the interview, like I had all these questions, and it was around the time where, because the movie was coming out, there were rumors that he would be going to TNA, that he might go to TNA. So I had a couple of questions laid out about potentially asking him about TNA. So he calls me from a blocked number. This isn't when he was with WWE. This is 5 years ago. He's his own guy. He's not involved with wrestling whatsoever, so I kind of got around to the wrestling questions a little bit later on, although I was told beforehand, don't ask a lot of wrestling stuff. So anyway, he calls me from a blocked number, very intimidating right off the bat. And then before we even get going, before I can even ask the first question, he says, no TNA questions, do you hear me? So I'm like, oh yeah, of course, while I'm like erasing the TNA questions on my document, like before we're going to speak over the phone. So I was shitting my pants, my heart was beating out of my chest in that moment, but he was a lot more calm in this time around, so I thought that was cool. Maybe I've just gotten better at doing this stuff, but yeah, he was really, really cool. You could hear the audio of that interview. Again, this Friday right here in the channel. Hit that bell button to be notified when the video goes up on Friday morning, December 11th, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, and don't forget to check out the article version of the interview as well on a Bleacher Report. So let's, on the subject of YouTube, we'll start with the YouTube questions for today's show. Beginning with No Laura, who would be your top 5 breakout wrestlers of 2020, given everything that's happened? There's been a lot, I forgot to mention this earlier, but there is a category in my 2020 WWE/NXT/AEW Year in Review Awards talking about the breakout star of the year for WWE and AEW, as well as the most likely to break out in 2021. So, by the way, again, like I said, I forgot to mention this earlier, but be sure to vote in the 2020 Year in Review Awards right now on WrestleRant.com. The polls will close on December 30th. You got around 3 weeks to still vote, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't vote right now. So go ahead and do that after you're done, of course, listening to today's show, or maybe while you're doing it. So there's a couple. I think Drew McIntyre had a great year. I don't know if you can really call him a breakout star, but I mean, he really did break out as a main eventer. He's been around forever, but he debuted in the company in 2009 and he left and he came back, but he really broke out as a main eventer. In the sheer definition of the word of breakout, he really broke out as a main eventer this year, really at the beginning of 2020, because he was building momentum last year, but it really wasn't until this year that he won the Rumble, beat Brock Lesnar, won the WWE Championship, had a really long reign, lost the belt, won it back 3 weeks later, so I would probably put Drew McIntyre at the top of that list. As far as other names, Ricky Starks has been great over in AEW. He was really a breakout star for me because I had no idea who that guy was. And I may have heard John Ritland mention him before in some of his reviews, and I think I've talked about this before, but I'm pretty sure John was familiar with Ricky from the the West Coast wrestling scene before Power came about, NWA Power, late last year. So that's how I got familiar with Ricky Starks, was through the NWA, left there, won the television championship at the beginning of the year, and now in AEW. So Ricky Starks was one. Eddie Kingston really broke out. Again, he's been around forever, but he really broke out as a mainstay attraction in a major wrestling promotion in AEW. Getting a world title main event shot at Full Gear I thought was really cool. So he really broke out this year. Darby Allin was another one. He was already on fire last year, but becoming TNT champion recently, getting people behind him. I feel like AEW has had more, but in NXT, like Cameron Grimes, I don't know if he's a breakout star, but he really improved in my eyes. I thought Cameron Grimes had a very good 2020. Could not have given two shits about the guy a year ago, but he's really improved and is now one of the better parts of the show from week to week. He's very entertaining. So Cameron Grimes, Dexter Lumis has grown on me. I think he's improved a lot. Again, breakout, I don't know about breakout, but which is funny because both guys were involved in the breakout tournament a year ago, and the tournament was won by the one guy who's no longer in the company, in Jordan Miles. But they were the real breakout stars of that tournament a year later. Angel Garza was also in that tournament. He went to Raw at the onset of 2020. He's done really well for himself. Bianca has had a very good 2020 overall, going from NXT to Raw to SmackDown. I can't say getting over because there's no fans there, but she's done well for herself. Raquel Gonzalez, she debuted back in February for NXT. She's been there forever. She's been there for a few years, but it wasn't until February that she became a regular on the show. And she has also come a long way, recently winning War Games. So, again, I could probably think of more from NXT and AEW than I can WWE. Man, I'm trying to think from Apollo Crews, I guess. He was always like an undercard guy. Now he's not even on SmackDown, but he really broke out there for a while, being like a 3-month reigning United States champion. He had a pretty good year. Cedric Alexander finally getting his due in the Hurt Business. I can't even say Mustafa Ali just because Retribution is such a bust, but people like that. I'm trying to think of who else there is that's really had. Like Kurt Stallion's broken out recently on 205 Live, which is cool to see. Santos Escobar has been a revelation over in NXT. He's been great. So they have him. Karrion Kross was another one. He obviously went from debuting for NXT in April, winning the NXT Championship by August. He got injured, but he still won the NXT Championship. Keith Lee arriving on the main roster, Riddle arriving on the main roster and beating AJ Styles on night one. Keith Lee beating Randy Orton in his first pay-per-view appearance, singles match on a pay-per-view at Payback. I don't know if he's a breakout star, but, around there. Damian Priest is really coming to his own this year. I know I'm naming way more than 5, but, I'm just thinking of those guys. I could have sworn, Timothy Thatcher, someone I wasn't really familiar with pre-2020, but he's really been a great part of NXT this year. So there's a lot, really, between WWE, NXT, and AEW in 2020, despite the circumstances, of course. Call Me PSN's got 2 questions. First one being, how can Impact get wrestling fans into their product, even with an AEW relationship and Kenny Omega appearance tonight? Some people just say LOL, TNA, and move on. Yes, some people, but some people, even if it's not the majority. Listen, I'm not expecting everyone who tuned into Impact last night to continue watching Impact. Obviously, I don't expect that at all. Even if it's a little bit, any little bit helps with TNA. Getting the crossover promotion, I'm really hoping it's not a one-and-done appearance, a one-and-done type thing where Kenny Omega appears on Impact and that's it. I'm really hoping they'll bring more stars over to Impact like FTR, maybe the Young Bucks for a match with Motor City Machine Guns or the Good Brothers. I think they can bring those people over more regularly and vice versa. Some of these people are very good. They just need more exposure. The North is very good. They just need more exposure. Rich Swann is good. Sami Callihan, people already kind of know how good he is. Moose, Eddie Edwards, Chris Bay needs more exposure. Impact is actually what I think a very good product. Probably the best the product has been consistently in at least, 6-7 years. I would say, because they have their moments over the years, but they always kind of fall flat or have a dead show. The show has been pretty good from week to week in 2020 overall, in my opinion. But yeah, I think even if a minority of the people who tuned into Impact last night stick with it, and I thought last night's show was actually really good, because sometimes they do have a lot of dumb shit. Impact is far from a perfect product, obviously. It's not what it was a couple of years ago in terms of how bad it was, but I don't care too much about the Johnny Swinger stuff, and I don't give a fuck about the Deaners or Wrestle House and who shot Johnny Bravo. They didn't have any of the silliness last night, which was smart, because I feel like if they did that, it would turn people off on the show. So I thought that was well done. They had Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan doing their thing. They had a very good match to kick off the show between Chris Sabin and Josh Alexander. Willie Mack, Rich Swann, Moose, Chris Bay all getting airtime last night, which is good because it was a very important show. Even if one person, not just one, hopefully more than that, tune into Impact last night and see a couple people they weren't previously familiar with, and they get familiar with them and they watch just for those people, that's a step in the right direction. It's better than no momentum. It's better than zero fanfare, which is exactly what Impact had previously, which sucks because the show is good more often than not, but they need to generate more buzz, and this is one way to do it. Obviously, the relationship benefits Impact way more than it does AEW, but I do think promotions working together, specifically AEW working with AAA, working with New Japan at some point would be fucking money. Impact, NWA, hopefully Ring of Honor at some point. Pretty much every major promotion outside of WWE, that's what we need more of. These wrestling promotions, and this has been said for a long time, need to be united in a time like this against the conglomerate that is WWE. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. It'll always be on top, very likely. So these other companies competing against each other is not going to help anyone unless they're working together. And obviously there's cons too. Not Tony Khan, but like cons to some of these working relationships. Like some of these working relationships where if you bring someone over to a different promotion and they get hurt, that sucks, or overexposure, or whatever. AEW already has a great roster, and a lot of those people aren't doing much of anything right now. So bringing people over from Impact would kind of ensure those people stay lost in the shuffle for a while longer. So there are, again, some pros and cons to each relationship with each company, but I do think it's a positive overall. It's very cool for fans. And will Impact all of a sudden be this hot show? Absolutely not. But again, even if just a portion of the people who tuned in last night stick with it or keep tabs on Impact more than they did originally, that to me is a win. Their second question, is Josh Matthews the worst announcer in wrestling today? I see so much hate for Josh Matthews, and in some respects, rightfully so. I'm not saying Josh Matthews is great by any means, but I think a lot of the hate for Matthews stems from his work on commentary 3-4 years ago when he was like the Michael Cole of TNA in like 2017, and they were really healing it up, and he really was not that good. But people weren't saying Josh Matthews was this bad. I really do think it stems from that one heel run that he had on commentary in 2017. That was fucking unbearable. But I really do think this all stems from that because Josh Matthews was with WWE for over a decade. He was never my favorite, and no, the Matthews and Graham Matthews is not inspired by fucking Josh Matthews, and he spells his name differently anyway. But he was on commentary for a decent portion of that time on Raw, NXT, ECW or whatever it was, SmackDown, Main Event, blah blah blah, and he wasn't terrible. The guy is was the Tom Phillips of the show, where he's good and he's decent, but he's not standout or special like a Morrow or a Nigel, in my opinion, or even a Wade Barrett. In Impact, I think people really just shit on him because he was so annoying a couple of years ago. He really has not been that bad in the last couple of years. Madison Rayne is not the greatest. I think Don Callis is an infinitely better commentator than Madison Rayne is, and they have better chemistry. It's better than Taz there towards the end. I think Taz is doing great work in AEW, but he didn't give a fuck in TNA towards the end there, and it was almost unbearable to listen to. But is he the worst wrestling announcer right now? It's hard to say. Compared to, I don't know, a WWE, I guess. Again, I think Tom Phillips is better than Matthews. He's probably the weakest that I can think of off the top of my head. New Japan, from what I've heard, has had a pretty good commentary team. NWA isn't running right now. Ring of Honor, I think Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni have actually grown into a really good team. Colt Cabana was great on commentary when he was still doing that a while ago before he went to AEW. AEW probably is the best commentary team in my opinion. NXT did for a while, and they're kind of getting back to that point. But Vic Joseph, he's good, but he's not great, and he's a fresh voice. But I don't know. I just think Barrett is better, and Nigel is better, and Morrow is better, and he's not there anymore. Byron does nothing for me. People shit on... It's the same thing with Michael Cole, where people fucking shit all over Michael Cole, but he's not that bad in present day. I think Josh Matthews is a lot like that, where I think a lot of the hate stems from the fact that it was that whole heel run 3 years ago. Is he completely unbearable? Subjectively, he might be. To me, he's not. He doesn't make the show completely terrible by any means. He's not one of the worst parts of the show, not one of the best. But then again, I've been watching Impact consistently for so long, and he's been there for like 6 years, like almost 5-6 years, to the point where I'd probably just tune him out. So, I mean, even if he was that bad, I probably don't even notice it at this point. We move on over to the Twitter questions at Iwagu91. First question, do you think that Jon Moxley has been better than Dean Ambrose? I mean, absolutely. And I mean, I think I had this conversation with RJ on WrestleRant Radio last week where Moxley has a lot of the same matches in AEW, and I won't disagree with that because he definitely does. They all kind of work the same style. They're all brawling. They all got to go outside the fucking ring. I don't like that. But I think as an overall package, honestly, I can't say Dean Ambrose had better matches than Moxley. And I say it as if they're two different people, but because he had a lot of great matches in WWE, but he's also had a lot of very good matches in AEW as well. So I can't really say that. I wish you would kind of merge the two in-ring styles between Ambrose and Moxley and not be hardcore, brawling all over the place all the time. I guess that kind of fits his character, but it kind of gets repetitive after a while. That being said, overall, I think Jon Moxley is a better presentation than Ambrose. Ambrose was never really allowed to be the Dean Ambrose that we knew from the indie scene or from FCW and that feud with William Regal, among other people. He never really got that opportunity. He was like a watered-down version of Jon Moxley. And I was always a big Dean Ambrose fan. He was really hot there in the beginning. He was very hot at certain points. But I think overall, Jon Moxley is he's a much better, I can't say better talker. He's always been a great talker, but he's now finally allowed to have that creative freedom, be who he actually is. And in the ring, it can be a detriment at times, but on the mic, the guy's money. And he just has a specialness about him now and a uniqueness that he didn't have in WWE when he felt like just like anyone else on the main roster. They were calling him the Lunatic Fringe, which was fucking dumb. There was nothing crazy about the guy. He's more of a Lunatic Fringe now than he was then. I think a hybrid of the two characters would be a nice balance, a nice mix. But overall, I do think Moxley is superior to Dean Ambrose. His second question, which women's division do you think is the worst, Ring of Honor or AEW? I mean, come on. We shit on AEW's women's division, but nothing is worse than Ring of Honor's. And I think Ring of Honor has put out a great product since coming out in September. They came back in September. The Ring of Honor Pure Championship Tournament, if you haven't watched it, was really, really good. And the weekly show is a lot better. They have EC3 there right now, among other people. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. There are no women on the show. The women are have not been featured at all. There has been no talk of the women's division in close to a year since the whole Kelly Klein situation happened when they fired her at the beginning of the year. They stripped her of the championship, and I guess they were going to do a women's tournament before the pandemic happened, and it just never surfaced. And they've been trying to sign more women. They don't have a lot. All I know is that they have Mandy Leone and Angelina Love. I'm not even sure if Velvet Sky is still under contract. She hasn't been on the show in like a year and a half. I think she had some sort of health issue or something. But other than those two, I have no idea who's even signed to Ring of Honor's women's division officially. So Ring of Honor's is absolutely worse. At least AEW has a lot of good performers. They just don't know how to book them. But they have more matches than Ring of Honor has had than literally all year. They have almost no women's matches in 2020, which is pretty sad. His next question, with Davey Boy Smith Jr., formerly known as David Hart Smith, done with MLW, where do you think he'll go next? Return to WWE or either join AEW, Impact, or Ring of Honor? I said this last week in a tweet. I'm very interested to see where he goes next. I was never the biggest fan of his work in WWE. I always thought Tyson Kidd was the better of the team, and I wasn't heartbroken when he got released in 2011. But the guy's actually grown from what I've seen into a very good performer. I've seen him do some stuff in New Japan, Ring of Honor, MLW in the last couple of years. He's really good. He's still relatively young, I believe. Probably in his, let's look it up right now, actually. David Hart Smith. I'm going to say early 30s. He is 35. Okay, that's not too bad. I thought it was like 32, because he joined WWE, I think, when he was really young. He was there in like fucking 2008, which would make him, 23? That's crazy. So, honestly, my money is on him going back to WWE. I really think he's going to go back there. I know he was on the bump at one point earlier this year. I don't know if they've had conversations, because obviously he was with MLW. I just think WWE is a good fit for him now. Will he become NXT champion, a top WWE champion? I don't know. AEW maybe, but I feel like, not that he doesn't fit there, but I feel like there's just more people that you can do stuff with there. I mean, before David Hart Smith, I don't know. I just don't feel like AEW is a great fit, unless they put him in like a fucking tag team with Brian Pillman Jr., but I don't even think he's signed yet. Impact, I know, is a very popular choice. Ring of Honor, probably not. They could use him, but I just don't see him being a good fit there, I don't think. Impact, probably. Impact is very likely. If it's not WWE, I think Impact would be a good landing spot for him. They don't have a ton of momentum right now, obviously. They don't have a ton of buzz outside of the AEW stuff. But I think there was talk at one point that before he re-signed with MLW that he was going to go to Impact and they were going to make him like the top champion or something. So I have no idea. But if I had to take a guess, probably WWE. I feel like he may see it as I've always wanted to go back. And it's now or never. His stock is not exactly skyrocketing, but it's higher now than it's probably ever been. And he's not getting any younger. He's 35 years old. So it's probably now or never as far as that goes. And I think he's going to go back to WWE. At noob_n_co 1991, what are your thoughts on Pat McAfee's first War Games match? I mean, honestly, the guy is such a natural that you would think that he's a regular wrestler. I mean, he does a better moonsault than fucking 90% of the people I see do it today in AEW, Impact, WWE, NXT, whatever. Charlotte's can be good sometimes. Sometimes they look like shit. Even Cody Rhodes. I mean, Cody Rhodes is a beautiful moonsault. But, Pat McAfee's might be one of the best I've seen since Kurt Angle. And that's saying a lot. And Kurt Angle had a great one. It just felt like he was fucking floating in midair when he was out there during that War Games match. But I thought it was a great match. I'll talk more about that later. But as far as Pat McAfee is concerned, I thought he had a stellar showing. He proved that he belonged. He took a lot of fucking abuse. It's not like they were building to it and then he just took a couple of spots at the end. Like, he was beaten up pretty much throughout the entire match. And the guy can hold his own on the mic. Obviously, he can go in the ring to a certain extent. He's not like the next Bret Hart in there or anything like that, but he's good enough to go in matches like this. I mean, considering it was a War Games match, that's saying a lot. So I thought he did a great job. I thought he was the MVP of the match, again, at least in my opinion. And I really hope that's not the end of his run in NXT, because I think he's been one of, if not the best part about the show for the last, 2-3 months now, ever since the Adam Cole feud happened, 4 months maybe. So I think it'd be a mistake to let him go or not have him do more, because he was fantastic on Sunday. Noob's next question: who will Charlotte Flair's first feud be with outside of the women's title picture when she comes back? Like you said, I mean, I figure her first feud back is with Asuka, which I fucking even hate to say that. I feel like that we've seen that feud a million fucking times. And Asuka beat her before. I think that was Charlotte's last match was against Asuka. Asuka beat her clean, and that was it. So I really don't want to see them rekindle that rivalry. Yeah, the matches are always good, but we've seen it so much over the last year and a half, 2 years, 3 years even, dating back to WrestleMania 34. There's not a lot of juice left in that match for me. Yeah, it's better than Asuka versus Lana or Asuka versus Nia, but I'd rather Charlotte do something else when she first comes back, personally. She and Lacey Evans, I think, could be very... you talk about Lacey and Peyton Royce. Who gives a fuck? They have no chemistry. It's completely random. Charlotte and Lacey, they teamed a time or two about a year ago, and I thought they had good chemistry. And Charlotte's never... She and Natalya seemed to be chasing the tag titles for a little bit last year. Natalya's on SmackDown now, so that's not going to happen unless Charlotte goes to SmackDown despite being on Raw. I guess that could happen. But no, I think she'll either team with someone. I mean, I think a Chelsea Green would be great. I've heard a lot of people say that. I think Alexis actually brought that up too. That would be really cool to see. And if not, I know at WrestleVotes actually brought up the possibility of her being managed by Andrade on TV. And I've said this before. I think one of you guys asked me about it. I didn't love the idea just because I just don't... Yeah, I know they're like not married, but like they're engaged to be married in real life. But as an on-air pairing, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It just feels random. But Zelina Vega's gone. Andrade needs a mouthpiece. Angel Garza is also on Raw, I guess. So Andrade can stay on Raw. And I don't really want to see them reform a tag team. I'd rather have them do their own thing. He needs something. And then the Charlotte-Andrade pairing, it would be something different for her. It would be something different for him. It could be interesting, so I'm willing to give it a chance. If that's the only other option aside from Charlotte versus Asuka, then I'd rather see that. Because other than that, what else do you do with Charlotte on Raw? I mean, Becky's not around, but we've already seen Charlotte and Becky a bunch. Again, Charlotte and Lacey maybe, but who else is there? Bianca would be great, but Bianca's on SmackDown, so I don't really know what you do with those women. What's your first impression, or what was your first impression when Sting made his debut in AEW last week? I mean, I loved it. I mean, obviously I had the same reservations that everyone else does, and I've heard reports that he might wrestle, but it's exactly that. I have my reservations about him wrestling again at the age of fucking 61, obviously. But I think if they do it in a certain way, it could work. I think he can be an asset. In what way? I don't know. Really, it all depends on tonight. Can he bring new viewers into the show? I don't know. I'm honestly not sure. How long will he be there? I'm not sure. I mean, I guess for a couple of years, but as a mentor to Darby, I think he would work. But yeah, I thought it was awesome. It was a great moment. We rarely get surprises in wrestling anymore, and I thought that was one of them. It was a great moment. I literally screamed out loud. Probably one of my biggest quote-unquote mark-out moments of the year. It was really fucking cool. But now it's all about the follow-up. It's all about the aftermath. How will they capitalize on Sting's debut? Where do they go with it from here? Was that it? Was that the peak? Was that the biggest reaction he'll get? Was that, is it just going to be a booking disaster from this point forward? I don't know. But I'm willing to give it a chance. And I think him being in AEW is cool. So we'll see where it goes. His next question, do you think the Drew McIntyre and Sheamus feud is serious or just a feud between two friends? I mean, obviously it's it's going to turn into a heated rivalry. By the time Royal Rumble, I would believe, rolls around, or WrestleMania or whatever, probably the Rumble. They're friendly, they're on the same page now, but that's as it should be. You can't turn Sheamus on Drew in night one. I mean, it would mean absolutely nothing. You got to play up the friendship between the two for a while. So I really like where they're going with this, and I'm glad it's not being forced or rushed or whatever. It's a natural story to tell, and I like the fact they're taking their time with it. So no, I think it will be serious, and then Sheamus is going to probably beat the fuck out of Drew one of these days after TLC, late December, early January, whatever. If they want to wait till WrestleMania, I guess they can, but to me, it feels more like a Royal Rumble match, and that can change. But yeah, it's going to be a serious feud when that time comes. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the YouTube Machine, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Check out his show. It's great stuff. And follow him on Twitter as well. So his first question was, am I the only one who hated McAfee kicking out of the Panama Sunrise, aka the Canadian Destroyer? So these are my thoughts on it. I didn't hate it. I actually liked it, and I thought I would never say that because I fucking hate, I mean, I've said this how many times, but I fucking hate when people kick out of that move. It's so annoying because it's a move that no one has ever kicked. Previously, people had never kicked out of before, like a year or two ago, when it became like as common as a fucking headlock. But with Petey Williams and the Canadian Destroyer, no one kicked out of it up until like a couple of years ago. And I think when Eli Drake kicked out of it in Impact. Before that, no one had kicked out of it in like 15 years or something crazy like that. Now people kick out of it all the time. And I know that's not WWE canon. Williams is Canadian Destroyer. He's probably just doesn't even exist in WWE canon. So I hate when people kick out of it. I liked it for this reason. I know he's a non-wrestler. He's not a regular competitor. But he proved he could belong in that match. He did the awesome moonsault, the swanton. He's very good at what he does. And that was the move that put him away at TakeOver 30. So they were playing off of that. I thought it was it. And because he didn't kick out of it, or because he did kick out of it, rather, it felt like a big deal. If it was on anyone else and it was a regular spot, I'd be fucking pissed. But with Pat McAfee, I liked it because at least there was a story there. This is the only time I'll probably ever endorse someone kicking out of the move. Just because it made sense. He knew it was coming. He's felt it before. This time he can kick out of it. So I'm okay with it. I completely understand why people would hate it. I totally get it because I'm the same way with almost every other instance. But in this instance, I didn't hate it because McAfee has been beaten by that before, which surprised the fuck out of me at TakeOver 30. But the fact he kicked out of it here because he didn't kick out of it at TakeOver 30, I thought was a nice touch and a nice attention to detail, at least in my opinion. But again, if you don't agree, that's completely fine. John's second question is Vicki Guerrero completely unnecessary in Nyla Rose's corner? It doesn't seem like Nyla needs her. I mean, I've been saying this since day one, but Nyla Rose, at least since day one of this alliance, but Nyla Rose does not fucking need Vicki Guerrero. She never needed a mouthpiece, and listen, I didn't start off as the biggest Nyla Rose fan, but she's actually grown on me. She's gotten better. She can actually talk, too. I mean, she's not the greatest talker ever, but she's not a terrible talker. She doesn't need a mouthpiece. I can think of at least 5 to 6 other people, including the fucking Hybrid 2, that need a mouthpiece before Nyla does. And I don't want to see Vicki with the Hybrid 2. That's not what I'm getting at. I just don't think Vicki's needed at all. I mean, AEW already has so many managers and mouthpieces, which is great. But like Eddie Kingston is a mouthpiece for the Lucha Bros. They have Arn Anderson as a manager for Cody. They have Tully Blanchard as a manager for Shawn Spears and FTR. They have Jake the Snake Roberts with Lance Archer, and I'm sure there's more I'm not thinking of. They don't fucking need Vicki Guerrero. Sting might even become a manager at some point. Maybe not regularly, but at least a mentor to Darby I think would be cool. They do not need Vicki. As soon as she debuted, I said, we don't need Vicki on the show, and I still feel that way now. Vicki Guerrero was not needed in 2020 in AEW. She's not needed anywhere in 2020. I was so happy when she fucking left. 6 years ago from WWE? She had well overstayed her welcome. And listen, she's great in that heel GM role, but it's a role that's been played out. We've seen her as a manager so many fucking times. It's a role that's played out. It's not like good heel heat. I just don't give a shit. So I don't think, not only Nyla, but no one needs her in that company. I really don't think they need Vicki at all. John's third question here. So it's been roughly a week. Do you think the finish of Moxley Omega match made Mox seem weak or dumb? He went through a lot worse during his reign, and one microphone shot busted him open. So first of all, the match was not an instant classic. I thought it was a very good match. Will not be remembered as one of the best of the year by any means. And I think that was done by design because it was supposed to be more of a story-based thing, an angle, which I get and I enjoyed it. Obviously, Omega was always going to win. He always should have won. The outcome should not have been any different. Him cheating to win, I don't even hate. The only thing I didn't like about the finish was kind of what you said, John, that it was the fucking microphone shot. I mean, why a microphone? I'm pretty sure he hit him with the soft part of it, too, like the part that you talk into. Why would Moxley bleed off of that? I just thought that was so dumb. And clearly, I mean, I know he hit the one. It's not the fact that it was the one microphone shot that did him in, then he pinned him. He hit the one-winged angel. No one ever really kicks out of that, aside from, I think, Okada once. Maybe someone else I'm not thinking of. But no one ever really kicks out of the move usually. So the fact that that was what beat Moxley, I'm okay with. The microphone shot I thought was stupid. The microphone shot stuff was really dumb. They couldn't get like brass knuckles or... I guess the chair would be too obvious, but like even a low blow or something. I don't know. I just thought that was really stupid. I thought the microphone thing was really dumb. It wasn't anything significant. You know, even like his AAA title belt or something would have made sense. I don't know. Even the title belt itself, the AEW World Championship, the microphone stuff was dumb. But otherwise, I liked the finish. It was overbooked as shit, I get it. But again, I feel like that was done by design, and I thought they did a pretty good job of telling that story. His last question, did you get a chance to see the Thunder Rosa versus Priscilla Kelly match from Primetime Live on NWA Shockwave on Tuesday night? If so, what did you think? I did. I watched it late last night. Great match. The whole show was very good. I like Shockwave so far. And I know it's a limited series. I think the Primetime Live stuff, they're not taping new content right now. They shut down the studio because I think they tape out of California. California's back on lockdown, I believe, completely. So they're not taping new stuff. They're probably only airing whatever NWA matches they, were a part of the UPN show, the Primetime Live show. So, and I don't know how long that's going to last out for, how long that's going to carry out for. But the match I did see last night between Rosa and Kelly was very good. I honestly have not seen much of Kelly at all. I think I saw her in Dynamite once, like on the Jericho cruise, maybe once or twice. She is good, but Thunder Rosa is just a complete star. Priscilla Kelly very much impressed me. They had a great match. It was weird, obviously, knowing the outcome because Rosa is no longer the champion, and I know she didn't drop it to Kelly. But it was very good. I think people should give Kelly more of a chance. More people should get eyes on her work. And Thunder Rosa is just terrific. She's another breakout star for me in 2020. She went from just being... I knew she was in Lucha, but she just did nothing for me, to now being one of the biggest women's wrestlers in the world at the moment. She's quite great. So yeah, I love the match, and if you haven't seen it, it was given a ton of time, like well over 20, 25 minutes. Go out of your way to watch it on NWA Shockwave on YouTube last night. At Kid Wicks, I believe is how you pronounce his Twitter handle, Roger, his question was, did that Omega promo on Impact do anything for either company? I think so. I mean, again, it's subjective. I've seen some people poop on it, but I think so. I think it got people excited for Dynamite, even more than they already were, going into Wednesday night, because they promised a big announcement. They established his motives. I thought they might just tease something and then not really deliver it, and it would be like a minute-long segment. I'm really glad that wasn't the case, and we got a full-on explanation from Callis. Almost too much explanation, almost too much exposition from Don Callis and Kenny Omega. But I thought it was really good, and Kenny is not the greatest talker by any means, but I thought he played his role well. Callis is a great talker. Everything they said, for the most part, made sense. So yeah, I think it did. I think it did a lot, because he also teased going after more titles, including maybe even the Impact World titles. That makes people want to tune in next week to see if Kenny Omega is going to show up, if anyone else shows up, if the crossover will continue, which I assume hopefully it will, and it sounds like it will. So yeah, I think it benefited both companies. I think it made people look forward to Dynamite, see what else Omega has to say and do on Dynamite tonight, and get people looking forward to Impact next week, Final Resolution on Saturday. What more will come of this crossover between the two companies? So I thought personally it was a success. At RJ_Marceau, Mr. Marceau's question was, War Games was fun, but if you had to change anything about the match itself, what would it be? RJ had said this to me over text, that he wishes it was like Elimination Style to make it more exciting for that first half. I mean, I get it, but that's not what War Games is. I mean, Elimination Style, just watch Survivor Series. This is not Survivor Series. That's what War Games has always been. And I'll say this, I mean, I've seen a bunch of War Games matches. That's the way it's always been, and it's a concept that's always worked. I don't see a lot of people saying, oh, it's boring for the first half. Yeah, it's not as exciting as the second half when everyone's in the fucking match, and it can be repetitive to see the heels beating up on the baby faces every single year for that first half. But they always make it interesting. I'm yet to be at the point where the War Games matches have lost their luster. It's not as special, the show itself, as it was a couple of years ago. There's no doubt about that. But I'm not yet at the point like with Hell in a Cell. It's like, oh, you know, it's December, it's November, it's War Games. Oh no, like I'm not quite at that point yet. Maybe next year, maybe the year after that. But I thought both War Games matches this year were good enough to justify them being brought back continually on a regular basis. I don't think having two matches in the same night is the smartest thing. I think that's overexposure. You're running the risk for overexposure there. But they want to get both the men and the women in there, so I get it. But I think maybe the only thing I would change is that you should probably put a roof on the cages. And they do that. They have it open because they want to have the people be able to climb the cages and jump off because, of course, they got to jump off every chance they get, like EO did and Pat McAfee, among other people. But other than that, I think it's perfectly fine the way it is. I think with a cage, it would make more sense because, like, for example, what if McAfee did leave the cage? What's the protocol there? Do they open the cage to have the other wrestlers go get McAfee? Like, what do you do? Like, it's supposed to be like an extended version of Hell in a Cell, so there really should be a top on top of the structure. But other than that, I think it's a great match. His second question, and also with the matches themselves, that would have changed the constant kickouts, and they probably should have ended the men's one on a better note, like with the Canadian Destroyer, the Panama Sunrise, whatever, or that Messiah Backbreaker from Strong. That was fucking sick. To have O'Reilly end it on the note that he did, I thought was a little underwhelming, but otherwise they were both great matches on Sunday. RJ's second question, push, repackage, and release Jon Moxley, MJF, and Hangman. Yeah, that's a good question. Oh, man. I probably would release Moxley just because MJF and Hangman have just such a much bigger future, and they're going to be around a lot longer than Moxley probably will be. And I like Moxley, but I think of the two, of the three, you probably got to let him go. That sounds weird, but that's how valuable MJF and Hangman I think are going to be. And I know RJ loves that answer because he loves, MJF and Hangman, but man, this is tough. I would probably push I don't know. It's kind of interchangeable. I'm trying to think which character is perfect as is, and all you need is just to push them. Probably Hangman. I think Hangman's at that level where he can be a world champion in the next 6 months. So push Hangman, repackage MJF, so he's not as much of like a cowardly. I think the guy's entertaining, but he should probably be presented more seriously sometimes. So, and he's still really young, so I get it. So I would say repackage MJF, not turn him face or anything, but repackage him, make him into a little bit more of a serious competitor, and then push Hangman because he's great. And I think he may not quite be ready for a world title run right now, but he will be probably by Double or Nothing. I think by that point, he's pretty much there. He's like 90% there. Way more ready than he was over a year ago at All Out, 2019. Best and worst of NXT TakeOver War Games. That question comes from at Scarlet One. We're going to finish off with her questions here. Best and worst of TakeOver War Games. Well, I thought the whole show was great. Not my favorite takeover of the year, but that's saying a lot because there's been a lot of good takeovers this year. The best was the 2 War Games matches and then the triple threat. Those matches were great. And also the announcement that Finn Balor is going to be on the show tonight, NXT tonight. Karrion Kross is on his way back. We got Austin Theory returning, so I thought all that stuff was cool. The New Year's Evil announcement, which was weird. I guess it's a playoff of a movie, but I don't get it. Just call it like New Year's Revolution or something. There's not really a worst, but honestly, I thought Thatcher and Ciampa was great too, so that might not even been the worst category. I thought Grimes and Loomis was probably the weakest match on the show, but it wasn't even a bad match. I thought it was a pretty good match, enjoyable for what it was. They told the story that they've been telling since the feud started, and it worked, and Loomis won. So, of the 5 matches, it was the weakest for me, but it's a lot like Dream and Kushida from TakeOver 31. It was a great match, but it just paled in comparison to everything else on the show. So I think that was probably the weakest match, but it was still a very good, very, very, it was a pretty good match and a great show overall. Their second question, how much do you expect Kenny Omega will do an Impact, and will other AEW stars cross over? I was going to say Omega probably won't do a lot. I think they want to keep him exclusive to AEW. He was just kind of there to tease the partnership. But again, it sounds like he might be going after Rich Swann. They teased that he might go after his world title. I think that's incredibly interesting. So I think we're gonna be seeing a lot more of Kenny in Impact. Maybe not a lot every single week, but an Omega Swann match, probably maybe either Revolution or before then on Dynamite or Impact, I think would be fucking cool. I think that'd be really fucking cool. So again, I thought that might have been it for him last night, but he teased gathering more titles in Impact, so it looks like we're going to be seeing more of him on the show, which is cool. Do I expect other AEW stars to cross over? I do. If they continue this, we got to get like the Good Brothers and the Young Bucks at some point. That's just got to happen. FTR in the North, I think, is a match that would make sense. If Ethan Page is on his way out, they better fucking do it soon, because it looks like Ethan Page might be leaving Impact, and I hope that's only a tease. I talked about this last week, but it looks like he might be leaving. I don't know if he is, but he lost the fucking Hornswoggle on Impact recently, so who the hell knows? But yeah, so what other stars should cross over? Honestly, anyone. I really don't have a preference. There's a lot of different stars that can go both ways. I would like to see Moose in AEW. I think that'd be cool. You know, Chris Bay is great. Willie Max, Swan, like I said, Eddie Edwards. There's a whole roster. From AEW, honestly, I have no idea. I really have no clue. The Young Bucks being back in Impact for a little while would be really cool. They're clearly open to the idea of working with another company, specifically Impact, where they called home for about a year or so there in 2010, 2011. I'm trying to think. There's no one name that comes to mind, but honestly, literally almost anyone aside from like the people I don't give a fuck about, like Brandon Cutler at Impact, no thanks, or like Peter Avalon or the Gun Club or Abaddon, no thank you. But everyone else is free game, in my opinion. Their next question, did you know that Jon Moxley is still the IWGP United States Champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling? I did. I don't watch the show. I don't watch New Japan regularly at all, but I was aware that he's still the United States Champion. In fact, it looked like they were building up Moxley and Kenta for that Wrestle Kingdom show, for Wrestle Kingdom whatever it is, Wrestle Kingdom 15, I think it is. I don't know, but for January. And I think Tony Khan has already said that it's not happening. They're not, or at least that Moxley will not be at Wrestle Kingdom. He didn't say the match would never happen, which makes me think, could we see Kenta in Dynamite? That would be fucking cool. I don't know if New Japan would be too happy about that their match is happening in another promotion, but I don't know. I feel like AEW has more to gain from that, than New Japan does. But like Moxley losing the championship right after losing the AEW title on AEW soil, I don't know if they would do that. I don't know if they're going to have Moxley lose two big matches back-to-back on AEW TV. Maybe at Wrestle Kingdom, but it sounds like that's not going to happen. So, I don't know. But he is still the United States Champion. He's got to drop the belt at some point. He hasn't been able to defend it in like a fucking year due to the pandemic, which sucks. But, I mean, this is what happens. You just got to deal with it. And hopefully he doesn't have to vacate it, because he had to vacate the title the first time around. So, to have two reigns without actually being beaten for it, I think is a shame. And it would be a waste. So, I think they should definitely continue to, continue to, keep the belt on Moxley, at least until he can get pinned for it. So hopefully that's coming soon. Their next question, do you think any champions in WWE, NXT included, will change before the end of the year? I don't think NXT will. The North American title, they've played the game of hot potato with that shit. That's got to stop. That's got to fucking stop. So, no, I don't think Finn Balor will drop the championship before the year is over. I don't think, maybe Lorcan and Burch, but they got to keep the belts on them for a little while, so probably not them. Maybe Escobar, if Kurt Stallion beats him for it on a show before the end of the year, that's possible. Like when Angel Garza beat Leo Rush for the belt in December of last year for the Cruiserweight Championship. That could happen. The women's title, I don't see Io Shirai losing it before the year is through. Maybe soon. I don't think it should be before the end of 2020. For the main roster, we do have TLC coming up. I don't think McIntyre is losing his title. I don't think Roman Reigns is losing his title. Lashley, maybe. I hope not, but maybe. Zayn, again, maybe, but I hope not. I don't know. I just feel like December is a big transitional month where they just kind of wait until the Rumble comes around. So I'm almost positive that we'll get at least one title change at either TLC or on Raw or SmackDown before the end of the year. They have so many fucking titles, it would be almost impossible for not one of those titles to change hands. I don't think, for example, that Sasha will lose her title. Maybe Asuka, just because she's been a complete afterthought, but I don't think so. I really don't know. But I would be surprised if none of the titles change hands in any show before the year is through, because there's so many fucking titles between all the shows. And final question from @Scarlet1, best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars. I thought Dynamite obviously was a great show last week. Very much overall, lived up to the hype. The Sting debut, the title change, the main event, all great stuff. The tag team match with Cody and Darby versus Team Taz's Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks was very good. What else even happened? The Battle Royal I didn't really care about. That would probably be in the worst category, but more so weaker. Baker and Layla Hirsch was a good match, so I really enjoyed Dynamite. It blew NXT out of the water, even though NXT was a solid show. I like Jake Atlas versus, Tony Nese, but the only issue with that is, it was completely random. Why would they start pushing That's what I was going to say. So, why would they start pushing Jake Atlas out of nowhere? I think it was probably because of the Pat Patterson stuff. I know, obviously, both are openly gay. And Jake Atlas dedicated his match to Pat, who had passed away that day or the day before. I feel like that was the only reason why they put him on the show. It felt forced on a go-home show to NXT. I'm all for Jake Atlas getting pushed. The timing just felt weird after he got squashed by Cameron Grimes the week before. Grimes had a match, I forgot against who. August Gray, maybe? I mean, it was fine for what it was, but it was a pretty typical squash. The best parts about the show, I thought Shotzi and Raquel had a good match, not nearly as good as the ladder match from the week before. I just don't think the ladder stipulation is necessary every fucking year with the War Game stuff leading into the show. But it was a good main event. And the Pat McAfee promo was probably the best thing about the entire show. I mean, yeah, CM Punk, that's what he'll tell you, because he said that the rest of the roster should be embarrassed that they are not as good on the mic as Pat McAfee. That's saying a lot, coming from CM Punk. And I don't know about embarrassed, but he is probably one of, if not the best talker in that promotion right now in NXT. So NXT was good, but I thought Dynamite was way better. And usually I, go back and forth in terms of I'll watch Dynamite first night and then NXT first every other week. I'm watching Dynamite first. I mean, Sting's going to talk. Shaq will be there for whatever the hell that's worth, among many other stuff. The Impact Fallout. So I'm very excited to see what they do on Dynamite tonight, and I'm definitely watching that before NXT live tonight. So that's it, guys, for episode 367 of #AskGSM for Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. Thank you, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM if you want to send in a question to the show. Be sure to find me on Facebook when I usually post the question on Tuesday nights at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop your question in the post, again, that I usually put up on Tuesday nights. I've forgotten the last couple of weeks, but that's because I preset the Twitter questions to gather the Twitter questions. So I used to do Twitter and Facebook at the same time. I just completely forget about Facebook now. And we don't get a ton of Facebook questions anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But I'll try to remember for next week. And then also right here on YouTube in the comment section down below, drop your question. I'll be sure to include it in next week's edition. So again, 2 final cheap plugs. 1, vote in the 2020 WWE/NXT/AEW Year in Review Awards. AEW involved for the very first time ever. Go to WrestleRant.com. It's right there under the Weekend Review tab, or a little lower from the homepage. It's right at the beginning of the top of the homepage from WrestleRant.com. The polls won't show up immediately. It takes a couple seconds to load just because there's so many polls. But give it a couple seconds. They will load. Be sure to vote. The results will be reviewed, and the winners will be revealed on the December 31st edition of WrestleRant Radio. And also, as I mentioned earlier, my exclusive interview with former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Universal Champion, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Goldberg. Not only on Bleacher Report in article form, but also in audio form right here on the channel, coming on Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. So subscribe to the show, the channel that is, and hit that bell button to be notified when that interview gets uploaded, in addition to all the other content that goes up every single day. So have a great one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and continue to enjoy the month of December, and I'll catch your ass down the road.